So I've been playing a lot of Far Cry 6 lately because there's not much else to do, and going back to this game I realized that a lot of things that I ignored the first time I went through. I made a whole video about the DLC for this game, but I never made a video about the game itself, and I thought it's time to mention this because I think honestly it's not that bad. So let's lay down the groundwork. As a first, I played Far Cry 3, 4, 5 and New Dawn. I didn't play Primal and I didn't play 1 and 2. I played all the other ones, so I'm not new to the series. I played all the other games and I do enjoy them. It's one of my favorite series. So you can tell I'm a little biased. I want this game to be good. So let's start with the most basic part of Far Cry, the story and the location. This game, unlike any other Far Cry game, does have third-person camera in specific cutscenes. The character is Danny Rojas, who is a specific character, so unlike Far Cry 5, this time you have a character and you don't get to create your own. And if I wanna be honest, the story of the game isn't so bad. The main villain, Anton Castillo, played by the guy from Breaking Bad, he is really good, he does the character well. He does it justice, he's scary when he has to be, he's not scary when he doesn't have to be. So I think the villain is great, any other Far Cry game can attest to that. The villains are always great in Far Cry games, but the problem comes with other characters. Here in this game, the main side characters are really boring, only like one or two of them are fun to actually interact with. Juan and some other guy. Some of the factions that you get to deal with are really boring and really cringy in some really bad ways. But if you are here in this game looking for story, I would recommend the DLCs. I made a whole video about that, you can check it out, it's linked here. But the really big part of the story is in these DLCs. They really did the story justice when it comes to other villains, but the main villain and the main story in this game is done kinda poorly, but it's enough to get you through the game. I don't want to call it bad because it's not, but it's not anything interesting or anything mind-blowing, so don't come in expecting that. Gameplay wise, this is where the real issues begin. Story is fine, you can look it over. Far Cry isn't that much about the story, although it's a really big part of it, but mainly the gameplay is what matters here, and the gameplay in Far Cry 6 is the same as we've had for the past 6 games, but it has less. There's more to do, but there's less to do, if that makes any kind of sense. There's no skill points. There is no new equipment that you get through the game. There's a lot to do because you get most of the stuff, but the progression is broken. There are no skill points, and they basically put the skill points into armor sets, which are fun to collect, but at the end of the day, I used one armor set throughout the whole game, the one that gave me extra health and stuff like that. I had no reason to use any other one, because as it leads into the other issue with the game, it's too easy. The game is simply too easy and there's not enough challenge in it. In other games we had the outposts that you had to take over. In this game there's outposts and roadblocks. Roadblocks consist of one roadblock and a couple of enemies, and that never changes. Throughout the whole game you go over 10, 20 roadblocks, and none of them offers anything special. They're all just like 4 enemies with a roadblock and not much else to it. Same thing with the outposts. There's like 15, 20 enemies, small outposts, nothing unique location-wise or combat-wise or anything-wise. It's just the same repetitive thing that we've done not only a million times in this game, but also a million times in other Far Cry games. And that's the problem, that we've seen this before, and since there is no challenge to it, it just makes it even more boring. At least if I was challenged, I would be having fun, but I've been doing this for 10 years now, so this is easy as hell, and they could have done something else to make it harder so it's actually challenging and engaging. They kinda tried to solve this issue with the new game mode, the Guerrilla mode, but you only get to play that after you finish the main story once, so it's basically useless for new players. You get to go in this harder difficulty with no minimap and more survival elements, but it only happens after you finish the main game, like I said, so you've already played through the game and most likely you're not gonna wanna play through it again after you finish the first playthrough. Maybe in a year, 2 years, but after you finish the first playthrough, you're not gonna jump right into the second one. So I think the Guerrilla mode is a really big wasted opportunity. If they could have given that as an option to start the game with, it would have been completely fine. It would have made the game harder, more fun, more engaging, it would have been perfect. But as it is right now, you have to finish the game at least once to play the Guerrilla mode, and that really just takes away from it. But I don't want this whole video to come off as negative, because there's a lot to love in this game. The whole world of open world Yara is really fun to explore. It's one of my favorite Far Cry worlds. I love the vibe of it, the music, the cars, the people. It's all fun to explore. The main NPCs are cringy, but NPCs that you see on the street are fun to interact with. The combat and enemies in it are well designed. They're fun to look at, fun to experience the fights. But like I said, the main problem is that it's repetitive and that it's too easy. If you recall, or if you watched my other video of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that was my main issue with that game as well. They didn't introduce any new enemy types. Same thing as in Valhalla. I've already seen all of the enemy types that they got in that game, and I've already seen all the enemy types in this game. There's a locket rancher dude, there's a normal assault dude, the officer. It's all enemy types that we've seen before, and they could have really give us a new enemy type that we haven't seen in other Far Cry games. The big selling point in this game is that they have tanks, but we've already had elephants in Far Cry 4, and that's not so different. So in my eyes, that's not really a worthy marketing tool. What they should have focused on is giving us actual new enemy combatant. Some guy with, I don't know, animal training or something. Anything that we didn't see before in Far Cry. Even though we did see the animal training, but still it would have been new here. Just give us anything new to fight, anything that makes it more difficult and more unique and more different than other Far Cry games, because that is the issue here. It's just the same Far Cry that we've had for years. But like I said, I don't want to come off as overly negative, so let's talk about some good things. Other than the open world, which I already said that it's fun, the story is well told. I like it more than Far Cry 5, but less than Far Cry 3 and 4. The main villains, like I said, is fun. I like him. The main character, Danny Rojas, is fun. He's like a badass. So I like the characters and the story, and that's another strong point for the game. But it kinda ends abruptly, which was an issue, and some specific parts of it are really bad, with some specific factions that I'm not gonna mention. They're really annoying. They're just the cringy hip kids that all developers think they portray well. Either way, some factions are fun, some are good, some are not. The story is a mixed bag, but I did like it overall more than Far Cry 5, but less than the other two. I don't know how I forgot to mention this, but the screen tearing is horrible. When you're driving, it feels awful because the screen tearing is just out of this world crazy. And I know that I already mentioned that the open world is fun to see and fun to explore, but I really want to stand on this point because I think the Ubisoft developers are one of the most underrated devs in gaming. They do this thing where I call it virtual tourism. Every world that they create, every location that they build, it always feels immersive, and I like exploring it. Even if the story isn't that good, even if the combat isn't that good, but they always do the open world in a way that's unique, and it makes it feel like you're just a tourist in this land. And it's same here in Far Cry 6. It's by far the best thing about this game. It's fun to explore, and Yara has many different locations that are unique and fun and have a lot of different things to see. So basically I'm making this video because I've seen a lot of hate for this game when it released, and now still it's one of the most underrated Far Cry games in my opinion. I think it's better than half of the games that released so far in the series, and I think that people should give it more of a chance, even though it's the same that the other half games had. It's not that unique, but it's still a fun game to go through, and Ubisoft gets a lot of unwarranted hate that I think they don't really deserve, and you should give this game a shot if you haven't already, because Far Cry is a fun series, and I'm pretty sure that the next one is gonna be completely different, because by now Ubisoft must have gotten the point that we need something new. So if you want to experience the old Far Cry and you don't have a PC to play the older games, buy this one because it's fun. It's fun, it has the tropical vibe of Far Cry 3 and the new improvements from Far Cry 5, although some things are not here, like the throwing melee weapons thing, which I would have loved to come back, but still, there's other things to replace it, like the reservoir weapons. Each one is unique. They're basically wonder weapons from Call of Duty Zombies. So what I'm trying to say is give this game a shot if you haven't already, because it is fun. And if you want to hear more about it, I am planning to buy the DLC, so let me know if I should, if you're interested in it. I already made a video about the main 3 Become the Villain DLCs, but I'm talking about the Plus Between Worlds DLC. That's the one that I didn't play yet. But if you're interested in any and all things Far Cry, Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed, stay on the channel, there's a lot to see, that's kinda my thing, and there's a video on your screen right now that I think you're gonna enjoy. Other than that, thank you for watching, do the usual YouTube thing, like, subscribe, whatever you wanna do, and have a nice day.